The story begins with two U.S. Rangers parachuting into Normandy in the pre-dawn hours of D-Day, tasked with a mission that was supposed to be straightforward on paper. Their objective was clear: infiltrate enemy territory, gather intelligence, and secure key positions to support the massive Allied invasion that would soon follow. But as soon as they landed, it became apparent that something was wrong. The maps didn't match the terrain. Defensive positions were in completely different locations than reported. And there were signs that the Germans had anticipated movements the planners hadn't accounted for. What was meant to be a precise, surgical operation now looked chaotic, confusing, and deadly. For most soldiers, this might have been paralyzing. But these two Rangers understood that hesitation could be fatal not just for them, but for the thousands of troops depending on their mission. They quickly assessed the situation, realizing that the success of the entire operation could hinge on their next moves. The intelligence they had been given was clearly flawed, and following it blindly could have led them straight into ambushes or minefields. Instead of panicking, they relied on their training and instincts, recognizing that in the fog of war, adaptability often matters more than strict adherence to orders. Every step forward was a calculated risk. They read the terrain, observed enemy patterns, and used every ounce of experience to reconstruct a new plan on the fly. It was a delicate balance. Move too slowly and risk being discovered. Move too recklessly and endanger themselves and the larger operation. What made their actions extraordinary was the sheer initiative they demonstrated. In a military hierarchy, especially during an operation as monumental as D-Day, following the chain of command is often emphasized above all else. Yet these Rangers understood that rigid obedience in the face of false intelligence could have catastrophic consequences. By taking responsibility for their own decisions, they essentially became small-scale tacticians, assessing risk, choosing routes, and prioritizing targets without waiting for orders that might never come in time. This independence was not about defying authority. It was about thinking critically under pressure and understanding the larger picture of the invasion. Every move they made had a cascading effect on the battlefield. By identifying areas that were unsafe or heavily defended, they avoided potential disasters that could have stalled the main landings. By finding gaps in the enemy's deployment, they created opportunities that allowed Allied forces to advance more effectively. The two Rangers' capacity to adapt under extreme conditions turned flawed intelligence into actionable insight, effectively rewriting the rules of engagement for their mission. Their choices weren't just about survival. They were about keeping the invasion on track and ensuring that thousands of soldiers landing on the beaches could do so with a better chance of success. In the end, their quick thinking and decisiveness under pressure exemplify the essence of what made small units, like Rangers, so vital to D-Day. When intelligence failed and the terrain defied expectation, it wasn't rank or numbers that mattered. It was courage, skill, and the ability to think independently in a life-or-death situation. These two soldiers didn't just survive the chaos. They turned it into a strategic advantage. Without their immediate assessment and adaptive action, the initial phases of the Normandy invasion could have been far more costly, proving that sometimes the fate of an entire operation rests in the hands of just a few individuals, willing to take responsibility when plans go awry. Once the two Rangers realized that their mission was based on faulty intelligence, the challenge shifted from following orders to improvising under immense pressure. They were now operating in a battlefield that defied every expectation. Roads were blocked, defensive positions were not where they had been told, and the German forces were alert and unpredictable. For most soldiers, this would have been a nightmare, but for these Rangers, it became an opportunity. They knew that if they could act decisively, they could turn the confusion around them into a tactical advantage. Instead of retreating or waiting for orders, they focused on what they could control, identifying critical threats, securing vital positions, and ensuring the larger D-Day operation could continue without disruption. Their first step was to survey the terrain with an almost surgical precision, mapping out paths that bypassed enemy strongholds while maintaining momentum toward key objectives. Every decision had to be immediate and precise because hesitation could have meant walking into minefields, ambushes, or deadly defensive setups. They used the chaos to their advantage, moving through areas the enemy might have considered unthreatened or insignificant, which allowed them to outflank German positions and disrupt the defenders' expectations. What might have seemed like a small maneuver to outsiders was actually crucial. By seizing strategic points and clearing obstacles, They opened a path for larger forces to advance. Communication became their next priority. Despite being deep behind enemy lines and in constant danger, the Rangers found ways to relay essential information back to command and to the units following behind them. Their updates on German positions, defensive gaps, and potential hazards allowed other units to adjust their approach in real time. Without this intelligence, entire waves of soldiers could have been slowed or exposed to unnecessary risk. By transforming flawed intel into actionable knowledge, the two Rangers became the eyes and ears of the invasion in a region where certainty was in short supply. At the same time, they had to neutralize immediate threats. Using stealth, precision, and the element of surprise, they disabled enemy positions that could have blocked the main invasion force. Every bunker cleared, every road secured, and every checkpoint bypassed was not just a minor victory. It was a critical contribution to the success of the operation. Their actions ensured that the larger forces landing on the beaches had a safer path inland, and that artillery and supply lines could be moved without delay. The Rangers' ability to turn adversity into opportunity exemplified how small units could have an outsized impact on large-scale operations. What makes this story remarkable is how two individuals could influence the course of one of the most important military operations in history. Their courage, quick thinking, and adaptability transformed what could have been a disastrous mission into a linchpin for success. By seizing initiative, identifying and neutralizing threats, and relaying essential information, they made the chaos of a misinformed mission work in favor of the Allies. Every decision they made in those critical hours contributed directly to the survival of thousands, and the overall effectiveness of the D-Day invasion. Ultimately, the two Rangers demonstrate that in war, success often depends on the ability to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. While large-scale strategies and plans are essential, the bravery and ingenuity of a few individuals can tip the balance. By turning flawed intelligence into actionable opportunities, securing critical objectives, and maintaining communication under extreme conditions, these two soldiers helped ensure that D-Day, a turning point in World War II, could proceed as planned. Their story reminds us that even in the most chaotic circumstances, courage and skill can create a ripple effect that changes the course of history.